Angels sing and light the way. They whisper secrets in the night, guiding hearts to pure delight. God's love shines like the morning sun, washing over everyone. In the skies where stars collide, heaven's gates are open wide. Fly with me to places high, where dreams touch the endless sky. Feel the grace that hugs the earth, every soul finds its true worth. In the quiet moments still, feel the presence ever real. Heaven's symphony unfolds, mysteries of life retold. Golden wings and halos bright, dancing in the silver light. Every prayer a star ignites, holy whispers warm the night. Fly with me to places high, dreams touch the endless sky. Feel the grace that hugs the earth, every soul finds its true worth.
Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Okay. Hello, everyone. I do apologize if you can hear me. Yes, I believe you can hear me now. Thank you so much for joining me in Hafez Reflects. I do apologize for the sound issues. We had some technical difficulties, as always. Always we have some technical difficulties. Okay, everything seems to be good. Everything seems to be back on track now. I can see everything going. I hope I don't have major echoes. Hello. No, I think that's okay. Okay. Where were we? Excuse me. Dusty. These dusty youths. Okay, thank you everyone for joining us again at Hafez Reflects this evening. This is another white session. Just got to make sure everything is in order before I put my ugly mug on the video again. Just bear with me, bear with us. We apologize. We're going to have to edit this section out, I think. Okay, thank you thank you, and welcome to Hafez Reflex. Let's put this on the screen. This is another trigonometry review. Well, when I say review, I'm mostly just going to play this because it's just fantastic. This is a recent video, came out by the Trigonometry boys just a couple of days ago, but I think it was absolutely fascinating. So I really think you guys should see this, or I'm certainly going to echo this for them. But I will say, if you want to see the original, of course, go to the Trigonometry channel and give those boys a like and a subscribe if you haven't already. We are going to play this video by Miss Charlotte Gill, who she's an investigator into mismanagement of funds by the government, or government's funding just ridiculous things. This is where your money is going. If you're wondering, let me just bring myself up here. If you're wondering why your grandmother has to freeze this winter because they cut her fuel allowance, or you have to wonder why you can't retire until you're nearly 70, which is, I think, what they're going to do. Apparently, they're going to now push the retirement age up to over 70, 71 now, which means most of you will probably be dead before you even collect a penny of your pension. So the whole pension thing is a scam now at this stage. Social security, what they call it, is just a scam. They're hoping you die before you ever collect it, and by the time a man of 30 years old ever gets to that, I'm sure that by then they'll push it up to like 80 years, 90 years old anyway. So you'll probably be alive maybe 1 or 2 days before you actually shed the mortal coil after you collected about 2 checks from your pension. So your pension, they're basically hoping you die before you ever collect the pension, is what they're aiming for in this government. So, but if you're wondering why you have to collect your pension at the potential age of 70 and over, you're wondering why your current pensioners and your grandparents are freezing, because of this. This is the reason. This video, this whole entire thing is the reason. This is what your government does with your money. And you wonder why they find billions for Ukraine all of a sudden, but they can't give you, your grandmother, a winter allowance. It's because these are the things they do when they're not giving billions to Ukraine or Israel, when they're not promising millions and billions on wars. This is what they do with the money that off the stuff that they've already embezzled themselves, off the stuff that they've already managed to put in their own back pockets, or they've given to their own, fellow tech moguls or energy moguls, or all these other corporations which are siphoning off billions in what they call subsidies and other ways of avoiding tax. But after all of that, after they have screwed you with giving money to their rich friends, this is what they do with the money that is left over after they've given it to the warmongers and the corporations. And I wonder if you approve of the way your government spends your money. Every time you hear these, listen, when you hear the words that are coming in this interview, think of it this way. This is why your grandmother had to suffer this year and freeze.
That's a surprise.
But what does that mean, decolonizing contraception? Oh my God.
Some of these are unbelievable. Bedwetting and incontinence in 1870 to 1970.
It's an insult to taxpayers. I call it the biggest scandal you've never heard of.
Charlotte Gill, welcome to Trigonometry.
Thank you for having me. I'm a mega fan, so I'm very excited to be here.
Well, we're big fans of yours because you're actually doing some very important work. You're doing a lot of research into how taxpayer money is being spent on some very interesting projects.
Yeah.
By the way, I just want to point out that this woman's voice and accent is extremely likable. She's a very relatable individual. She doesn't come across as snooty. She's got a very down-to-earth, working class kind of accent about her. She's comes across a little bit feisty, and just generally, I don't know. I found her to be very likable. Maybe I'm a bit thirsty this month. I don't know what it is, but when it comes to coital relations, out of 10, I give her 1.
Yeah, so for the best part of a year now, I've been running my Substack on what I call woke waste. I call it how the taxpayer is funding their own demise, essentially tracking huge numbers of projects that most people have no idea are on the go, that are woke and extremely expensive altogether.
Like what?
So the first bit of evidence I stumbled upon to realise how bad this was when I was looking into, I'd actually been tipped off about a study in higher education about non-binary inclusivity. And I was looking into the academics that did that study. And one of them had worked on a project about pregnant men, exploring the pregnant man. And so obviously I Googled that, had a little search for what that was all about. And it took me to a website called the UKRI, which I'm sure we'll touch on later. And I saw a price tag attached to it, which was altogether, it was just under £700,000. I thought, what is this price tag? Discovered that we were paying for it. And that was really the beginning of my woke waste project. And yeah, hasn't stopped since then.
So we're spending 700 grand researching pregnant men.
Yeah, so this was a study that's in the past now, but it went on for several years. It was led by someone, Professor Sally Hines, who's quite infamous on Twitter for hounding gender-critical women. And her own research is about gender identity, and she's had, I think it was into the millions of taxpayer money. Meanwhile, this is someone who is pretty rude to taxpayers, which gender-critical feminists are as much as any other people on Twitter. So, and quite politically active in general, but she's completely representative of the type of person that we're funding a lot of in higher education.
Look, I'm going to get angry. This is just going to happen. And so let's just delve into it. Make me angry. What are the most egregious / bonkers nonsense that my hard-earned money is being used to pay? Shouldn't have had that third coffee.
Where does it begin? It spans a number of areas. It's charities, Arts Council England, so that's sort of theatre section, and universities very, very badly. So the one that I published that everyone gets upset about or frustrated about is the Europe That Gay Porn Bill, 1945 to 2000.
What?
Yeah, it's looking at how, the Europe That Gay Porn Bill, I don't know, 1945, I don't really understand the logic, but...
They're funding gay porn films. They're doing an in-depth research on gay porn in Europe. And probably decolonizing gay porn in Europe, I would imagine, at some point. To be honest with you, I'm only interrupting because you kind of have to if you're doing a review. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure you guys have heard already a bunch of stuff which is ridiculous. £750,000 in research for researching pregnant men. You wonder why your grandmother has to be cold this month, this winter. You wonder why cost of living is through the roof. You look at the grocery bill every time and you think it's a telephone number, except it's the price. That's why. Because they're funding why men can be pregnant at the tune of £750,000. It gets better, by the way. This is but a mere tip of the ice cock that is shoved up your rectum.
And this is by the academics on the project. One of them has a long history of doing studies on gay porn. It really seems that there's no end to academia on this subject. And the other one, he has had another taxpayer grant. It comes to about £1 million, the taxpayer money that's gone towards him. And his previous one was on gay pig masculinities.
I want to reiterate that. Gay pig masculinity. A £1 million research on gay pig masculinity. I don't even know what that is. I always thought I was fairly hip, fairly up to date with the trans, gay, LGBT cool kids. I worked on behalf of a gay magazine for a long time, one of the top selling ones in the country. And I have never heard of gay pig masculinity. I know bears. I know furries. Hell, I even read an entire article on amputee porn. But never gay pig masculinity. That one never crossed my table. I'm kind of upset. I don't know why. That this did not. I somehow missed this one.
Which I don't. I still know why. Well, I know what he says it is, but I don't know how popular pigs are among the gay community.
So what does that involve? Gay pig masculinity.
So from the abstract, the gist is that some gay men, this is what he says, not me, find they have a sort of pig fetish. They like acting like pigs. And part of his research, because I watched webinars of him explaining the research, there were pictures of men meeting in a stable with hay around them.
So I thought it was like, you get otters and beavers and whatever, like terminology for gay men. Actual pigs.
No, not actual pigs. They like pretend, getting in the farmyard, the two men.
Sorry about that. I was muted. I've heard of pay pigs, which is a term used on various, OF type channels, adult based websites where ladies are in their boudoir and negligee. I'm trying to avoid the obvious terms, but you know what I mean. They're showing their chocolate starfish to the world. And there are people who are called pay pigs. They literally just give these women money, and these women insult them back in text or in chat or in whatever on the video. These people just write in text, insult me and I'll give you money. And that's what they do. And they are called pay pigs. Men who like to pay women to treat them badly on the internet. But I had never heard of gay pig masculinity, where they like to root around like pigs with other men. And I presume they're in mud. Maybe, I don't know, do they eat their own feces? I can imagine there is feces involved. I can only imagine that there is feces involved. I don't know to what degree, but I'm quite positive if I were a betting man, feces is involved. Also fisting. A lot of fisting, Mr. Obama.
And this is what he said.
For gay men. Actual pigs.
No, not actual pigs. They like pretend, getting in the farmyard, the two men. This is what he said.
Look, it's a free country, but why are we researching that?
I've got to know. One of the worst, there's a lot of weird footage that came out of the study in the webinar.
That's a surprise.
And it resulted in a film at the end, which I've seen a bit of footage from, with hands and lubricant moving around them. One of the worst bits is a gay porn actor is interviewed as part of the research. And I don't know how crude I can be on the podcast.
You can be pretty crude.
You can be pretty crude.
He's this American actor, and he's just interviewed about what he likes when he's doing porn. And he talks about men lining up and how he likes pigs. And he's like, yeah, wham, bam. Like, it's really explicit, and just like, it's disgusting about hearing anyone's sex life like that. It's not a sexuality thing. But yeah, this was part of very important research that cost £170,000-£80,000. So this man's had a lot of taxpayers' money. And I think the thing is, also he's Portuguese. And I mentioned that because he lives in Sweden. And I don't think, especially when there are a lot of debates about international students, I don't think Brits are going to be particularly happy to know that this individual is now in Sweden, voted recently at the elections there, I saw on his Twitter, and is part of an £840,000 grant to study gay porn.
£840,000 to study gay porn and masculinity in gay pig men. I honestly don't know what to say. I mean, I'm...
And then work that into meat. Give your meat a good old rub.
What is happening with the world? What is happening with the world? This is the only thing I can think of.
What's wrong with you? wrong with y'all? You niggas are crazy.
Let us continue, boys and girls.
We're both lost for words a little bit.
I don't. So, what is the value of this? How is this justified?
Good question. I don't know. Research, it's all part of the diversity obsession at universities and pretty much every publicly funded sector. Also, it does just seem that you can get a grant for anything if you just embed social justice terms into your proposal. Most of them are complete nonsense. There's a study about decolonizing the city of York, for instance. There are hundreds of studies about decolonizing things. And all they're doing, they just think of anything and they just embed those words into the abstract. I'll be like, I'm going.
Yeah, decolonizing things is everywhere. I heard someone wanted to decolonize mathematics. There was an actual video years ago where an African students were having some kind of LGBT, woke kind of meeting, and the girl was talking about this colonialist science that came from the Westerners, and that they should start exploring African science, where she heard some voodoo sort of witch doctor in a village that could raise the dead. Why aren't they spending money on researching whether that is true? So yeah, decolonizing mathematics and also developing African science over regular science, which is just science.
Going on the Triggernometry podcast to scrutinize two cis hetero white males. I'm going to see if I can unpick their gendered privilege through my eco-poetry, through a Foucauldian analysis, involving decolonizing Westminster Abbey, where we're near. Yeah, that would be the kind of lexicon that we use.
I don't think you get any money for that. But what you can get money for is
Oh my God.
some of these are unbelievable. Bedwetting and incontinence in 1870 to 1970, researcher. And you can get paid 40 grand as a researcher for that as part of a £250,000 research project.
Bedwetting and incontinence researching. I mean, I don't know how dirty you got to get your hands dirty on this one, but 40k. I mean, it's not a massive wage in London nowadays. Middle class wages 60, 70k, but still 40k for exploring and researching bedwetting and incontinence. Guys, get your applications ready.
It's true. Yeah, I saw that. And obviously it sounds ridiculous. And it's from a certain period of time as well. I can't remember what the decades were, but I think
It's 1870 to 1970.
1870. Yeah. And what they do to try and make it sound relevant, there are two things. Because obviously you just think that's ridiculous. Why do we need that? We need medical doctors, but we don't need bedwetting expert from that era. But what they do to try and make it sound relevant is they say, oh, I'm working with these current charities. They're working with a few in that project to make it sound like they're going to help patients now. And that's why the research is needed. But ultimately it's just, when we're hearing about austerity all the time in the news, why do we need that?
Right.
It's a very good point, because actually what you talk about very articulately is the corruption of the charity sector. Let's talk about that, because
No, let's not talk about that. Let's talk about the Tapuna Project, intergenerational healing, settler accountability, and decolonizing participatory action research in Aotearoa.
I think he's talking about Eritrea. Unfortunately, it's hard sometimes to read, and I'm dyslexic as hell. But I think he's talking about decolonizing Eritrea.
310 grand, mate. Or alternatively, let's talk about 1,180,000.
1,180,000 this research cost that he's about to read. £1,180,000. Again, why is Aunt Betty freezing this weekend, this winter?
Pounds on the cultural legacies of the British Empire. Reasonable. Classical music's colonial history.
Classical music's colonial history, because clearly classical music wouldn't have existed if it wasn't for the colonialists. They got it from the black man. I'm sure it's at some point in that research it comes down to they got it from the Africans because we was kangs.
I'm
Lovely,
angry.
isn't it? There's quite a lot of studies that involve travel to get to
Really?
to get
Really?
to the bottom of what's going on in these places. One of the most often you do find, and this is why I bring up international students. I found a bit of a correlation with international students that come to study in the UK, but somehow are posted at their home countries to conduct the study. So one example I found is a Bolivian PhD researcher, so she's going to get a doctorate, who's gone back to Bolivia to decolonize museums in Bolivia, and we're paying for that.
Decolonizing Bolivian museums. I mean, you know, sometimes we take the piss by saying, you know, people go and do underwater basket weaving degrees from universities. There are PhDs, bona fide PhD students that are researching how to decolonize the Bolivian museums. And it's a paid gig. It's a paid gig. You know, I have to wake up at 7 a.m. every morning, give or take, to go to work. Sometimes 6, sometimes 5, depending on the needs and requirements of some of the calls I have to make. I could have been decolonizing Bolivian museums, but I chose IT. Woe is me. What am I? Am I an idiot? I am insulted that I didn't think of this shit myself, personally. I mean, why am I not decolonizing Bolivian museums? I could live in Bolivia. I think I would be fine. Nice, hot, sunny climate. I'd learn a bit of Spanish. Decolonize some museums. God damn. I mean, this is why those guys have the PhDs, and I'm just a mere graduate of a IT degree. That's why.
The British taxpayer is paying for this woman to decolonize museums in Bolivia.
Yeah,
While the government is taking winter fuel allowance away from pensioners.
it's really a crazy situation.
I mean, call me controversial. It doesn't sound appropriate to me.
It just goes on and on. Charities are equally bad. We even gave government money to one called Decolonizing Contraception.
What?
I know.
Yes. Let me say it again. Decolonizing contraception. Apparently, the condom that you strap on those excited nights of coital interactions, yeah, there's colonial history behind that. Next time when you're strapping a Johnny on, look down and make sure you chastise that piece of rubber for its colonial history. Maybe your condom has to pay reparations. Every time a condom breaks, a slave goes free.
It's really...
So this has just become one giant scam, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to lie, but I'm always worried I'm going to get sued, because I am making a lot of enemies, but I call it the biggest scandal you've never heard of.
Because what does that mean? But let's look at it.
He's really struggling.
I'm really struggling. But what does that mean, decolonizing contraception?
Well, I went through a lot of studies about decolonizing. I mean, there are hundreds. Some really are about decolonizing. There's something to do with the plant world, and a good opportunity to say that not everything we taxpayer fund is bad. We do a lot of proper science as well. Decolonizing, after looking at hundreds of these studies, it just means nothing. Like, we're decolonizing folk music, for instance, for £1.5 million. That's one that really annoyed a lot of people.
£1.5 million to decolonize folk music. Why is Grandma cold tonight? Why does Grandma have to choose between beans on toast or turning on the gas heater for half an hour? Because you're decolonizing folk music, people.
And those studies are the researchers delving into the white centricity of folk music. All it means is de-whitify. The terminology is very vague, but it will be, the gist of it is, yes, it's a bit white. So we're going to bring in our special healing, like sort of like an exorcism to remove the white spirits from the city of York or folk music or whatever else contraception that they're decolonizing.
Because what's interesting about this is if your criteria for getting approved for research is hitting all these particular things that you talk about, race, gender, diversity, then obviously that's what you're going to get. So whilst I think it's awful, incentives work. If you incentivize a particular type of behavior, that's what you're going to get. And so it's the system that's incentivizing this, isn't it?
Yeah, you could say there is an argument for that, but the system is run by people in the system. It's academics who know other academics. It's all just very cyclical. But I do take your point. One example of what you're saying is...
It's kind of called nepotism as well, a little bit to some extent, where academics are funding other academics. The system, the people who judge whether this money should go to X, Y, and Z are the very wokey types that approve of this crap. So the system, I mean, because you start to think to yourself, I mean, this is what I was thinking when I was hearing this first time, is that who approves these ridiculous funds? Who approves these grants to pig gay porn studies or Bolivian museum decolonization? This would be ridiculous if it came across any normal person's brain. Normal person. If this proposal came across your desk, I need 1.5 million pounds to go to Bolivia in order to decolonize the Bolivian museums. You'd be like, you're out of your rocker, mate. You're crazy. You get out of my office. Why are you wasting my time with this crap? But it's not. It's not coming across normal people's. The checks and balances. The watchguard are the very people that should be watched. They are the wokeries themselves. So the watchmen who are supposed to approve and unapprove these types of things are the very wokery professors and academics. So the woke is approving the woke. So of course they're going to get approval for this kind of nonsense, because the very people that they have to ask approval from are the woke. They're not asking some miner. I mean a guy that goes down a mine. I don't mean a child. They're not asking your average working class binman or the guy who works on a construction site or just anyone of a normal brain. No, they're asking for approval from the woke. And these woke people, these professors and universities get this money given to them by bucket loads by woke politicians. So you got woke politicians funding woke universities. That money gets filtered to woke professors who approve grants for woke causes and nonsensical woke bollocks like gay pig porn, masculinity in gay pig or gay pig men or the ridiculous Bolivian decolonization of museums. It's the whole system is built around it. How do you break the system is really the question. It's how do you break the back of this son of a gun? And what is it going to take for people to finally start to go, no, my mother's heater being on is more important than your decolonizing of folk music in York. It's just insane. It's insane. We are ran by morons and idiots who take our money. This is why they say taxation is theft. I was actually going to say this at the beginning of the show. For me, the premise of this, you should always have in the back of your mind, taxation is theft. You should not have to give the government your money. The government takes your money at an end of a barrel of a gun. Remember that. Because if you don't pay, you go to prison. Now, it used to be that sometimes you could even be shot, but they suddenly put you in prison for a very long time. So it's that the threat of your liberties being taken away from you, that they take this money from you. You don't pay taxes. You don't volunteer your tax over. They take your taxes from you. It is what the government takes from you, and it is theft. And there are societies and communities in the world where they never pay tax. And there were places in these European isles where they never paid tax. In Britain itself, taxation was only levied against wars and nothing else. You didn't just pay tax for the sake of paying tax. Of course, I mean, there was a whole feudal era, and there was peasants and lords, and you know, most people were indentured servitude anyway. But I'm saying that when it came to the taxation thing, they just switched that peasant class and that indentured servitude that you had towards your lord and your landlord and your masters. They just switched it to your government. Now you pay your dues to your government. Your government is your master, your lord, your keeper anyway. I mean, let's be honest, that's what's happened. They just switched it. And now you're still an indentured servant. You just wear better clothes and shower a bit more regularly.
It's the Arts Council England. I don't know, you've heard of Arts Council? Yeah. It's all just very cyclical. But I do take your point. One example of what you're saying is the Arts Council England. I don't know, you've heard of Arts Council England? So it gets 445 million of our money a year to spend, and it also gets about 170 million for national lottery funding, which is a whole new woke area as well. And Arts Council England does incentivize woke. It has 4 investment principles. Essentially, if you apply for funding with Arts Council England, you've got to embed these investment principles into your funding pitch. 2 of those are about the actual work. Is it any good? The other 2 are environmental responsibility and diversity. And the site has huge numbers of documents to help you embed these investment principles into your funding.
I got to apply, man. I got to apply. I'm an idiot sitting here actually doing work 9 to 5 every day. I am a moron, and I pay a fortune in taxes for it too. No, I am putting a proposal together. Persian decolonizing of the Persian artifacts in the British Museum. Because you know that they've got a bunch of Persian, Assyrian artifacts. There's a whole slew of them in the British Museum. I've been there, I've seen it. I think we have to decolonize that, take it back, and in fact, put it back in its original place of Shiraz and other parts of Iran where they originally belong. Decolonizing the Assyrian, Persian museum pieces from the British Museum. I mean, it's a rough proposal at the moment, guys. I'm going to, smooth it out a bit more. You have to include some kind of decolonizing the Persian, Assyrian artifacts in the British Museum for LGBT liberation in Iran and environmental health for lower carbon emissions.
And it even has a note like, we'll be looking to make sure that you embed these investment principles, winky wink. And one example that I saw that I think was someone trying to do this was a non-binary dancer who was converting their dance moves into renewable energy. And when I first saw it, I thought, no, like, what are you doing? But then
let me repeat that, because I think some of you may have missed it. A non-binary dancer that is going to convert the dance energy into renewable energy. That's the proposal for the grant. I bet they got that one though. Hold on.
I saw that I think was someone trying to do this was a non-binary dancer who was converting their dance moves into renewable energy. And when I first saw it, I thought, no, like, what are you doing? But then I thought that's not a thing. But then I was like, clever. See, he's got around it because he doesn't have to, to meet environmental targets. It's quite expensive. You're not going to get a carbon capture machine. So why not convert your dance moves into renewable energy?
But how are you going to convert dance moves into renewable energy? What is it? You use kinetic energy, which then converts into heat. So because
look at this. This is this white cis middle class man trying to impose, mansplain to this white woman about how someone can use their dance energy in order to reduce carbon footprints. Just accept it, man. Just accept that this man is going to use his dance routine in order to reduce carbon emissions.
Because you're moving, you're inadvertently heating the building. Is that the argument?
I don't know. You'd have to ask Prancer the dancer who was playing at South.
Oh my God. The man's name who proposed this is Prancer the Dancer. This man walked into an academic setting. Imagine this. He walked into a place or whatever, a room, a meeting room, where maybe there were 2 or 3 professors, arts professors, sitting there. And he said, "Hi, my name is Prancer the Dancer, and I need £150,000 because I want to create a dance form which will convert, I don't know, was it a gay dance move? Oh my God, what was it? I've got to go back. Hold on. Let me go back.
You know, to meet environmental targets, it's quite expensive. You're not going to get a car because he doesn't have to. That's not a thing. But then I thought, no. Dance moves.
Hold on.
A saw that I think was someone trying to do this was a non-binary dancer who was converting their dance moves into renewable energy.
There you go. He walked into an office with a straight face and said, "Hello, my name is Prancer the Dancer, and I would like 150K I'm a non-binary dancer, and I would like 150K to convert my dance moves into renewable energy. Can I get 150K, please?"
And when I first saw it, I thought, no, like, what are you doing? But then I thought that's not a thing. But then I was like, clever. See, he's got around it because he doesn't have to, you know, to meet environmental targets. It's quite expensive. You're not going to get a carbon capture machine. So why not convert your dance moves into renewable energy?
But how are you going to convert dance moves into renewable energy? What is it? You use kinetic energy, which then converts into heat. So because you're moving, you're inadvertently heating the building. Is that the argument?
I don't know. You'd have to ask Prancer the dancer who was playing at South Bank Centre, which is another taxpayer-funded.
Prancer the dancer.
Yeah, it was called. Name. It was.
Look, all I have to say for that. Well done, Prancer the Dancer. That takes balls. That takes a lot of balls to be able to walk into a meeting and ask for money for converting your non-binary dance moves into into renewable energy. And of course, I mean, I'm presuming that the Prancer is
Gay!
I'm assuming that that's what he is, but his proposal...
mentally deficient / retarded / dripping with autism, just spewing out of everywhere.
I would imagine that would have been the normal response for Dancer the Prancer's proposal, but in this case, he probably got the grant.
Part of, South Bank Centre is woke central, so they had, they had a bit of his dance, or his dance.
Like, the woke stuff is obviously everyone knows what we think about it, but people are allowed to be woke, people are allowed to have these opinions. But to me, this just seems like an obvious waste of people's money. And to be serious about it, you know, if I'm a pensioner living in poverty somewhere and I'm hearing that we're spending, 50 grand here, some guy's getting paid 200 grand to watch gay porn all day, I'd be pretty irritated about that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is just a colossal, it's not just a waste. A waste is like, we bought too many tables, we had to throw one away. This is actually misspending of taxpayer money.
Yeah. It's shocking. When I first started covering it, obviously some of it is funny. You have to laugh.
Yeah.
There was even someone that got taxpayer funding who called himself a green being, like that actually painted green as if it's a gender identity, and they were called Oozing Glue, by the way.
Oozing Glue. The guy, he got taxpayer fund. That was approved, by the way. He got the money. He painted himself green, called himself Oozing Glue, and said, "I am a green." I don't even know. I don't. This is all the information I managed to ascertain from this conversation. The balls it must take to actually go up and make this proposal and get the funding. And he got it. He got the funding.
But the more I write about it, and I always read the comments when I write for the Telegraph about it. And at first people are like, haha, what a joke. And now they're like, what? You know, the rage is growing, and fair enough, because it is a massive, it's really bad what's going on. It's an insult to taxpayers, especially when you see people that need funding for illness. Cancer care in this country isn't great. There are lots of rare diseases, motor neuron disease, for instance. Pensioners having their fuel allowance. We know there are lots of things lacking in the UK.
Yeah. Let's cut funding from motor neuron disease and winter fuel allowances to fund Dancer the Prancer and his non-binary dance moves. God. And you think migrants are the problems? To be honest with you, if these kind of fundings were not, these kind of wasteful taxpayer money was not being made, these kind of just money being flushed down a toilet, essentially, we probably could even afford the goddamn migrants too. We could probably afford to put these poor ass migrants up in some. I mean, they're not really poor. I think they're just economic migrants. But we could still accommodate them, believe it or not. They wouldn't be the problem as much as we think if we cut this crap out. Dancer the Prancer getting hundreds of thousands of pounds for his non-binary dance moves. That, on the face of it, that actually makes the migrants much more legitimate for funding, for government support than Dancer the Prancer. Oh my God.
Could do with investment. And we have a political class talking to us about austerity, and there was none, at least not how they make it sound.
Do you think also the problem is this is what happens? Let's use Arts Council England. This is just what happens with state-sponsored art. You get this nonsense because you're insulated from the reality of having to sell tickets and make a profit, which you have to do on the West End.
I think there's an element of it attracting a certain kind of person who I don't want to say this about everyone in the public sector. There are lots of publicly funded people whose work I really appreciate. Dustbin men, policemen, nurses, things like that. But there are a lot of people that there's an entitlement to it. They just think, we're so brilliant, we should be state funded. And a certain type of person is attracted into that public sector for that reason. It is very much to do with a bloated state. Some of the people run, Arts Council England, for instance, is run by a positive psychologist who is a bit too positive, in my opinion.
What is a positive psychologist? Please, somebody Google this for me. What is a positive psychologist? Is he always chirpy and happy? It's a psychologist that, life is fine. Are you on a suicide watch list? Don't worry about it. Come on, it's all great. It's all going to work out. What the hell is a positive psychologist?
Opinion about arts, and retweets all sorts of stuff that other people would find woke and contentious. So it does attract that sort of person.
But also as well, I mean, I think that, look, if you're putting on a West End musical, you've got to make sure that you can pay the venue. You've got to make sure you pay directors, the dancers, the actors, all of this stuff. You best make sure you get bums on seats.
Yeah.
Because if you don't get bums on seats, it's closing and you lose your money.
Yeah. No, this is a really good point. Yeah. Sorry, I should have answered that.
So I just want to point out that Francis Kissing, I like Constantine Kissing, but Francis, I just think he's like a pound shop Herman the monster, like Frankenstein's monster in the Herman in the monsters. He just strikes me as that, and he's oafish and ogreish. And I've never laughed at one of his jokes. I can promise you that. He's just never made me laugh. He's an unfunny comedian. And I think this show would have been dog crap without Constantine. Constantine's the one that's really holding up he's carrying Francis through this one.
But this is a really good point, because the one number you never hear about is ticket sales and how much money they make. They only want to talk about money when they want more of it. For instance, The Guardian has some ridiculous articles about, it's got its own austerity section. And there's a few talk of cash-strapped entities. And one is the South Bank Centre, which receives near 20 million, sort of around that rate. So it's a huge amount of money. And yeah, the CEO was in an article headlined Cash-Strapped South Bank Centre. And she was upset because the National Theatre got a bit more funding, a few more million. And, you know, you'd think there was a little violin playing, but it's tens of millions and they are putting on crap. South Bank Centre, for instance, puts on the Trans Voices Choir for children for 5+, where you can come and see transgender people, you know, and loads of other...
It's like a medieval circus.
Yeah, loads of other kind of woke things. And then you've got the Globe, for instance. You're always going to hear like, oh, the Globe, the arts are on their knee, you know, it's on their knees. The Globe had I Joan, a play about non-binary Joan of Arc. Mm-hmm. Does anyone want to see that?
Non-binary Joan of Arc. The fact is, a lot of people already assumed Joan of Arc was probably a lesbian anyway. She was most likely a rug muncher. But they are now creating art, sort of stage performances for the non-binary Joan of Arc, because just being gay isn't good enough anymore.
I had friends that went, who genuinely love Joan of Arc. They're like huge fans and went seriously, and they just said it was completely awful. So you think, who's going to that? There's one. So have you heard of the Battersea Arts Centre?
Yeah, I know the BAC. I used to love.
Yeah.
Disclaimer: I used to 20 years or so. I used to love going to the BAC. They always put on really new, interesting new work. It wasn't always great. You know, there was hit and misses, but there was a lot of people who got their start at the Battersea Arts Centre. An example of this was Jerry Springer the Opera, which then went on and became a huge hit. And that started at the BAC.
Yeah, it's gone downhill. So the CEO, I've seen him do a few tweets about austerity and how the arts needs more funding, and they've definitely had a decent amount of funding. I can't remember off the top, but it's in the good level. And the shows they put on, there's a non-binary person or whatever doing something called Blood Show, and it's a female originally, and they've just got blood. It's even on my website, I think, but they've got blood coming down their face, and they say on their website that they won't work with like a team of all white men, that sort of thing. And then the other one that was at the Battersea Arts Centre. So yeah, you wonder how many.
You know what this reminds me of? If you guys have ever seen a movie called Idiocracy, if you haven't, you have to watch this movie, because this is a movie that has essentially become a documentary now in this modern world. They had a movie, this was like, the entire story, if you haven't seen it, is a guy who goes into a cryo chamber, then something goes wrong and he ends up being asleep in this cryo chamber for, like 1 million years or whatever. And in the distant future, his cryo pod reactivates and he comes back to life, but he's 1 million years in the future. But by that point the world has become just stupid. Everybody's just dumb as hell, because only the dumb people reproduced. The smart people just didn't reproduce after a while, and it was just dumb people. Anyway, the biggest top-selling ticket, the blockbuster of that year when he was around, was a movie called Ass, and it was an entire movie about an ass, just images of an ass, naked ass, from different angles. I think occasionally it farted, I don't know, but that's all it was. The entire movie, it was like an Oscar-winning performance. It was an Academy Award-winning movie called Ass. And there was another the most popular TV show called Ow My Balls. And it's just a compilation of one guy getting shot in the balls by different things: ropes, boots, legs, just him flying on like a swing rope into a tree, with his legs apart. It's just people just taking shot at his nuts. And those were the entertainments of the future, and I can see us getting there. I can see us. I mean, she just described there was an art piece called Blood, where the person just has blood dripping from their head. Watch out for Ass, guys. Coming to a movie theater near you. Big up, Manny. Your mic sucks, Manny.
Want to go and see Blood show. And then the other one at Battersea Art Centre, which I wonder how many people wanted to go and see, was called First Trimester. It was by a trans woman, no, I don't know, someone who was trying to get pregnant, a female, and searching for a sperm donor on stage.
What?
With National Lottery funding 64,000.
Someone was looking for a sperm donor on stage. Their performance act was, I'm looking for some spunk. I need a bukkake session. The National Lottery paid for someone to essentially get a bukkake. Awesome.
Of it. And who knows? And the worst thing about it, this person had a moustache and on the stage, sort of looking for Mr. Not so much Mr. Right, but Mr. Plastic Cup. And the worst thing, as in the worst thing is, I went on their Instagram a while later, and they're not even pregnant. So what was the point of that? Not only did we spend a lot of money, well, the National Lottery spent a lot of money on this woke thing, didn't even get the result from that.
No, because she was just looking for the sperm, right? I mean, she couldn't have been, or I guess they couldn't have been pregnant until they got the sperm. So they did the show to get the sperm to become pregnant. So maybe down the road they got pregnant, or maybe this was all just a grift.
How dare you be so insensitive to their infertility?
Imagine a burglary at your hot day
Now, protect
having plus and
until less than.
anti-penetrating.
Have you tried to
Trigger.
any of these?
There's no safe like Simply Safe.
Charlotte, have you tried to reach out to any of these organizations and ask them any questions about why they're doing this, or question any particular projects?
Not really. I did try that. There were some. I mean, when I write an article, I do have to get in touch with them to tell them to give them right of reply. And there are typical trends in how people reply. A lot of professors don't really want to talk because you have to say what you're going to say in your article, and you have to be quite explicit. And other than that, a few of them wanted to have a go at me, actually, about the charity. But other than that, I just view it as a sort of hostile environment because for them to be saying those things anyway, we're never going to have a constructive conversation. In general, I always say, people get told off about sticking in their echo chambers, and we're meant to get out of them and talk to people we disagree with. Whereas I think, actually, I like my echo chamber. I don't want to go out of it. I don't want to talk to, other than the legal requirements, I don't want to sit and have a conversation and try and understand someone that thinks non-binary is a thing, or that women can have a penis, any more than someone who thinks the earth is flat.
But what we're also talking about here, and this is the other element of it that I find very, very troubling, is that, so you've got this ideology, which is completely dominant, and what it is doing is it's strangling free speech in the arts. So if you want a type of performance or a play which is going to be heterodox, which is antithetical to this ideology, that simply isn't going to be produced, is it?
No, everything comes down to identity. It's everything's view. The product is what's their identity first, and then we'll look at the product. Whereas you want to, the way you want it round is that the identity is incidental to the product, and good art shouldn't be limited to a certain identity. It should naturally come through. And I think the arts, the class is the biggest barrier in the arts, but music especially has always been fairly diverse. But yeah, there's one theatre called Soho Theatre.
We're well familiar with it.
Yeah. Oh, okay, really? Oh, because the comedy. Yeah. So I used to love that theatre. I mean, it's great. It's a great date venue. I always found to go and have a drink at Soho Theatre. and you remember they hounded, there was a anti-Semitism scandal there where people got hounded out. But I found, they've got this, it's called Femmes of Colour. They've got a comedy night on there. So every woman taking part on it, or non-binary person, is an ethnic minority, or sometimes they're calling it global majority now. And it says white people need to check their privilege when they come through the door. And all of the other shows is a lot of trans, ethnic minority. It's just it's so reductionist as well. It's quite dehumanizing. It's just doing exactly what the far right do. The other way is the progressive version of that, because we're all being reduced to our parts. And if they intersect, oh, well, that's brilliant. Especially, if you're global majority and you're transgender, oh, brilliant. Like, we really want those kind of people. Oh, white and straight and a man, oh, and cis hetero. Oh, God. Oh, no thanks.
So, in other words, this ideology has really permeated this sector, as we know. I mean, we knew that. That's one of the reasons we started the show when we were in the comedy industry. This was already happening back 7 years ago, when we started. But it just sounds like this is the dominant worldview now. And that's fine, except I don't understand why the British taxpayer is paying for it.
Yeah. It's strange. It does feel like we're not living in a secular society, that there is a dominant religion, and that art and publicly funded institutions now serve to perpetuate it. It does feel quasi-religious, because all the art is telling the parables of woke.
It is religious. It's been religious for decades. I swear there should be a church of woke. There really should be. Just like this rainbow-colored building with the new woke rainbow flag outside. You get like a quasi priest walking in with a massive rainbow gown, blue hair, or at least one side blue, one side purple, just to make sure. And the priest is sort of tells everyone their pronouns when they come in. Good evening, good morning, my flock. This is your priest. I don't know, Elijah, Fanny Weather. My pronouns are they, them, he, she, her, two-spirit. And begin the sermon. Because that's what it is. It is a religion. Because people don't have religion. If you look at most of these people, most of Britain, most of Europe, no, people don't have. Christianity failed them, or in fact, the atheists were way too successful, effectively. And they didn't replace they took out Christianity out of these people's lives. They didn't put something back in its place, which was equally as good and sensible, and woke took that place. What do you think happens? They say nature abhors vacuums. You left the vacuum, you heathen atheists, and woke filled it, and some Islam. For some people, Islam filled it. And in fact, it looks like in Britain, Islam is filling it more and more, because woke is still, in its ultimate nature, is hollow. It doesn't have a foundation. It's just built on, it's a house of cards with no real foundation. So it's easily collapsed. Whilst Islam has a much stronger moral foundation and ethical and religious. I don't agree with the morals and ethics of Islam, but its foundations are at least well rooted. They're not wishy-washy. They don't just flow with what the next thing is, because people have realized woke isn't one thing anymore. It just constantly changes. You're constantly on eggshells. Whatever was acceptable yesterday is deplorable yet tomorrow. So people who have adopted the woke religion are constantly on their toes, trying to jump from one woke thing to the next. And it's unsustainable. So they'll give it up, they'll drop it all eventually, and they will go to what in Britain and Western Europe seems to be the dominant religion at the moment, which is Islam. Christianity is not a dominant religion anymore. So if you want your citizens to not become an Islamist jihadi, then I suggest you guys start talking to them about Jesus and how he loves you and how he died for your sins. I know it sounds crazy. I'm an atheist, but I can see the functions, I can see the practical and pragmatic reasons why you should talk about Jesus and how he died for your sins and he's your Lord and Savior. So, yeah.
It's there to, you kind of know what pillars there are in woke. It's racial identity, white is the original sin, and there's a sort of pyramid of race that's meant to be more oppressed than the other. It's transgenderism. They're not so much interested in feminism now. It's more that sort of thing. Environmental movement as well. There's Noah's Ark vibes to it, to be honest. The idea that we've hurt the earth and God's going to punish us. And all our money is just being used to embed this. And if you don't like it as well, say you don't like the film that came out a few years ago about the Me Too movement, oh, it's a bit silly. I didn't really like that. That's a bad example, but or like say Joan of Arc. Oh, she wasn't non-binary. If you insult the parables, you could be blasphemous and told off.
Yeah, I mean, the Me Too movement movie, I don't know, I didn't even see it, but I've certainly seen movies like An Inconvenient Truth, which have turned out to be mostly nonsense. Half the predictions it made never came true. Even if they do, they may be way down the timeline that they estimated that they'll be. So, yeah, no, they literally predicted by 2012, 2014, the polar ice caps would have completely melted away. Nothing of the sort has happened. They predicted things like, I mean, literally, I got Neil deGrasse Tyson on Bill Maher saying that I will take a bet if anyone wants to bet me that. I forgot exactly the timeline, though. He didn't give a timeline, the sneaky bastard. But he said, I will take a bet that in the future, Florida will be underwater. And yet they're still selling beachside flats and apartments and housing to multimillionaires. They literally cost millions of pounds in Florida. Right now, with all the weather shite that they've had and all the floodings, they're still selling beachside property in Miami. So, no, I don't think some of these predictions have come true. But then, the Bible and the Quran had a lot of prophecies too that never really come to pass. But people just sort of brush over that as if that never happened.
But yeah, it is ridiculous that, especially because it all happened under a conservative government.
That's the punchline.
We don't have a conservative government in this country. Haven't had one for best part of 20 years.
Really, isn't it?
Yeah. Because, and this is something you've spoken about, and I find it actually quite powerful that on the one hand, you have the conservative government going, we don't agree with this, we don't agree with this. And then they're just shoveling a load of money to these organisations who are just producing this nonsense.
Yeah. In my experience, they're always saying one thing and funding the opposite. For instance,
because they're liars. You know why? You know why they say one thing and do another?
Fucking liar!
That's why. They say one thing and do another because they don't actually want to do the things. They are all on the woke payroll. They're all sucking at the teat of the wokeness. Now, ladies and gentlemen, just before we continue with this little intermission, the Triggernometry boys do an ad for themselves all the time. So here's a little endorsement from a little guy that some of you may or may not know.
Hello, this is Donald Trump. I'd like you all to know that the Banksy Style Live channel is a great channel, a terrific channel. I really like you all to subscribe and share this channel. It's a really terrific channel, a Patriotica channel. I like the channel, and he is a great friend, so go there today.
Thank you, Mr. Ex-President and soon-to-be future President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. Continue with the video. Thank you.
They were, Liz Truss and Kemi Badenoch were great on gender identity. They were really, really tough on it. But then I looked at funding for, say, hate crime charities and ones that endorse all that terminology, all the gender identity, and that got government grants. In fact, this hate crime charity I found was funded by my own council and Camden Council. So they were getting hundreds of thousands over the years. And in addition to perpetuating all this terminology that the central government were trying to oppose, they were also funding rainbow paddling sessions at, it's called Camden Pirates. You can go canoeing there. They were just funding jollies for gay people and LGBT, and they even had film sessions.
Sorry,
they're
are
cooking.
these like euphemisms like paddling and canoeing?
No, they
like cottaging.
genuinely were going to this place called the Pirates. It's not like pig masculinities again.
Okay.
Sorry, it's not like pig masculinity. Remember that.
Yeah.
It's a
so
pirate
this was
session.
and this brings me to another point. So so central government, I don't know what the hell they were up to, and then local government as well. They always go on about austerity. You're always hearing them in the news saying, "Oh, we're on our knees. We're about to go." Many of them have gone bankrupt.
Yeah, Birmingham Council have gone bankrupt.
Yeah, I know. They hired food justice consultants.
Sorry, say again.
I know they hired food justice consultants.
Food justice consultants. That is an actual job. You can be a food justice consultant because there is injustice in food.
And they had this food justice online event. Some of these online events are hilarious as well. It's like 4 views, and you'll see the council. They'll be like, "I'm so excited to be here today," And the guy, one of the guys leading it, I just found him saying, he introduced his talk about food justice by saying something like, "Food is really important. I mean, we all need it to survive." Why are we paying?
Wow. Mind blown. Food is important and we need it to survive. How do these people come up with these genius quotes? My mind is a scramble right now.
For this, but you'll just find huge numbers of examples of councils that, the LGBT rainbow paddlers, and they also had like queer creative art sessions. They were getting, it was something hundreds of thousands each from Camden and Islington, while they were saying my council actually said it was prioritising frontline services, and I was like, no, you're not, because they're going kayaking. Yeah.
They were funding frontline services like kayaking for the LGBT community. Again, I say, why is grandma freezing this winter? Why is grandma freezing in January?
So, because coming from a background in education where you were there going, we do not have enough money. We do not. Class sizes are huge. We've got kids who have got special needs. They're not getting the support that they require. And you go, these are things, and we've also got, especially post-COVID, there's so many kids now who are struggling with mental health issues. All of that, you go, this is where we require funding. This is where we require money. This is what's important. The next generation. And then we're going, well, there's no money for that. There's no money, CAMS, the children and mental health services. That they just, they're on their knees. You can't get an appointment there for the kids. However, we can get some gay people to go paddling.
Don't forget the gay pig masculinity and gay porn masculinity research that is vital and critical to British life. So funding for those. But if your child needs to be in a class less than 30 people, then go take him to a private school. You capitalist pig. Or if you require an appointment that is within this year and not, because the cancer that's riddled through your body is going to kill you in the next 3 months and you really need an appointment, well, just sit back and wait till your GP calls you. And if they do, it's probably the wrong number and they're looking for some immigrant that they have to take care of first.
Honestly, it's crazy. The amount of things that we now fund while the government is telling everyone that we've got no money left. For instance, I saw Wes Streeting the other day. He did a talk at the Labour Party conference for something called the IPPR. it's the Institute for I can't remember the exact title, but it's one of these think tanks, and so many of them have really innocuous sounding names, so no one ever looks into them. Whereas they're like, oh, Tofton Street. Sorry, I went a bit northern there, but yeah. So I thought this is often how it happens. So I went, who the hell's this IPPR, and why is West Streeting doing a talk for them? And I went onto their funding. Obviously, we're paying for it, aren't we? I went on to there are a lot of charities that you wouldn't actually think were really charities, but the IPPR is a charity, and I looked onto its accounts and I saw there's something like £300,000 in taxpayer money. And this is a charity that gets funding from lots of other sources as well, huge numbers of different ones, like Founder. So it's not really badly off, but it puts out very contentious stuff to a lot of taxpayers. It loves, it's promoting electric vehicles. A lot of people don't like that idea. It was talking about how to combat the far right. It had this really funny, I thought it was quite funny, the blog it had about it, because it just had this man who looked like he shops in JD Sports with a skinhead fighting the police. It's as if they think Hitler would have been in, what's that show? Yeah, just shopped in JD Sports, basically. They just think...
The Nazis had taste. They had Hugo Boss suits.
Yeah.
They wouldn't do that.
That is true. The Nazis drove Volkswagens. In fact, Hitler himself was in a Mercedes, and Hugo Boss designed all their suits. So, no, they don't shop at JD Sports.
I know, right? But I was just shocked that we're funding this IPPR. We're funding, have you heard of Universities UK?
No.
This is the thing. No one ever says yes when I ask them, have you heard of this, that we're funding with all these projects? So Universities UK it's had about 17 million in taxpayer funding.
That's 17 million in taxpayer funding. Guess what they do? They do a critical frontline service.
Over the years. Mm-hmm. And it basically lobbies for universities. All of its content is saying they're really great. We need to spend more on them, more than we are currently on, which is just under 9 billion a year from one Quango. And so they're just putting out lots of let's fund universities, and we're paying for them to be around. Whereas some taxpayers don't want to pay more for universities, which they are. Do you know what I mean? We're paying for a lobby group for universities because it's deemed a charity. There's just so many instances of this. We should be able to vote on their proposal, not have to fund them making the proposals.
So the good news is we've got Labour in power, and they're going to do something about this, right?
I really don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I do kind of know what's going to happen with Labour, but I think... I always joke that we're going to have another peasants' revolt because the conditions are there.
Stop using Keir Starmer's language.
But I think a lot of people, there's real growing awareness, even woke waste. Mm-hmm. The views are growing by tens of thousands per month now. A lot of it's getting out in the papers. And especially with the interests, the registered interests that came out about the Labour Party, people are becoming aware of just how bad problems with funding are. If you look through, I don't know if you've looked through the MP's register of interests. So it's about, and I don't know if I need to explain to listeners what it is.
You should, yes.
It spells out every MP in Parliament. It shows who they've received funding from, if they work for anywhere, unpaid or otherwise, if they have any shares. And it's about 780 pages long. It came out a few weeks ago. And for the media, the main story was Nigel Farage. Because of his salary, he had a really good, something like 100k per month from GB News. So that was the story. They're like, done. He's the baddie, dark funding, Russia, whatever they want to say, he gets paid a lot. That must be really bad. Let's just do loads of stories about that. I have been looking at this. I'm still on B, right, out of the whole alphabet. There's so much gold in it.
Give me 1 minute to tell you about Senolytics and why they're being called the bullfish screen of litty cells. Ruling health is non started front out plus at the comms for an agency I sent off
People are
this. Thanks to Qualia for sponsoring today's episode.
people are generally more aware now that there's a whole lot of unions in there. So all of the Labour MPs, it's like you could just find out who the real Prime Minister is in that document. There's someone called Gary Lubner. He just funds absolutely everyone. People know about Dale Vince, that he puts a lot of money into the Labour Party. So we've got this double issue of we've got all the woke stuff that they want to spend more money on anyway, but we're also having to look at the funders and what the funders want to try and ascertain what policies we're going to get, because they make it quite clear, a lot of these funders, what they like. And when you're looking at Labour policies, you just think, well, it's probably just them rather than you.
So, I mean, let's take these two. Do you know who they are? These Gary Lubner and Dale Vince. Who are these people?
So Dale Vince do you know the ecocentricity founder? He's in the news quite a lot. He's been at the Labour conference. He runs several energy companies. He used to fund Extinction Rebellion and Just Stop Oil, and he's given $5 million to the Labour Party. I don't know that much yet about Gary Lubner because I only really clocked his name actually, although there are quite a few stories about him in the press. Another one's Lisbeth Rousing. I think she's Swedish, she's a philanthropist, and she has funded Labour very generously. But of course, that means that you end up having to look into them and what they want, because there's no such thing as a free lunch. And they're all really into the environment quite a lot. Obviously, like they want wind power, things that might.
Because the environment is the greatest grift right now. It is something that they never have to actually show it's going to work or happen, just like the documentary, The Inconvenient Truth, and the second one, and all these other, things. This is apocalyptic language. They can use apocalyptic language to get governments to essentially pour money down their throat without them having to actually produce anything. To this day, Germany still subsidizes alternative energy. Wind and solar and all the rest, because they are still not profitable to be able to fund themselves. They still get funding, they still get subsidies from governments, most of these alternative energy sources, and some of them still use old school energy to produce their new type of energy, which is insane. So no, unfortunately, look, I'm not the type who likes to, see the world just burn away coal 24/7 and just smog and dust and crap everywhere. I like a nice clear countryside, but I have to weigh that up against, does Granny need to put on the heater this winter? And if I have to suck up a little bit of smog because grandma, or anyone's grandma, not even my own grandparents, have to suck up a little bit of smog because they can be hot this winter, then I'll do that. Because at the moment you haven't produced anything that's worth replacing gas and petroleum or oil-based product fuels and coal. You just haven't. You're just shutting things down, making our lives 10 times harder for no reason. And by the way, even if Britain was absolutely producing zero carbon emissions, they only contribute 2% to the entire world's pollution. The whole of Britain only produces 2% of pollution to the whole world. So you're not a player in this anyway. Even if you take us back to the horse and cart, you're still not going to make that single damn difference to the pollution of the world compared to China, India, and the United States. So it's ridiculous. This is absolutely insane. But it is a great grift for these multimillionaires, and they know this. That's why they're all up in it. Because they know they can just siphon money, taxpayer money, from governments who are just happily giving it away. And the population seems to, I don't know what it is, what kind of magic spirit, what kind of spell that they've cast upon the population. The population are just not saying anything about it. It's like, no, let them. It's the environment because the 98% of the professors, the scientists. Trust the science. Trust the science, right? They told us in 2020 to trust the science. Mr. Fauci told us to trust the science. I'm sure the science is dead on. I'm sure the science is spot on. If Manny's still in the chat, he'll tell you about the science.
Might not necessarily be good for Brits, as a lot of people have said, but might be good for other people that have shares because they've put them in renewables. I mean, one example to go into the whole eco thing is, do you know what the Climate Change Committee is?
No.
So we have a committee. This is part of the reason, by the way, that we have all these funding holes, because to pan back a bit, Tony Blair splintered democracy a lot. He exported it into quangos. He had we had devolution under him. His whole approach was splintering everything so that government, even though we have a central government, its powers are so much more weakened. So the Climate Change Committee was one of these Blairite institutions, and it's meant to help us reach net zero. So it's a task force, rather like the Migration Advisory Committee and the OBR, Office of Budget Responsibility. It's a task force designed to help us meet net zero targets. Now, we don't vote for it. Most people have never heard of it. And the people involved have shares in renewable and energy companies. And I think that creates a really big problem. Obviously, if they had shares in oil and they were deciding energy policy, that would be a really big problem. But I think because it's green, it must be good. And also when things are in plain sight, people don't... Plain sight is the biggest hiding space for things. Another example is, do you know the MP Chris Skidmore?
Great name, though.
Yeah, he's kind of... he's a bit of a Tory wet, I would say. He was, I think he was the person that signed net zero into law. And he's kind of how I got into researching environmental funding, actually, because I just saw him post a lot about net zero. I thought, he's a bit enthusiastic about this. And I just thought, money. And I went onto his registered interests, and he was getting paid 80,000 per year by something called the Emissions Capture Company. He also got 40,000 a year from some sort of education higher ed company. And Kel's surprise, he was very enthusiastic about higher education and net zero. He's written a book on why net zero is great. He's now left as an MP. I don't think that's cool at all. I don't see why he should. I think that is a really big registered interest issue. And sorry, because I've gone in a real round circle, but Labour are going to be awful because they have a lot of green funders and things that you can't even really find. I find in the document. There's one company I couldn't find, but I could find in it without going on a whole spiel. But it just means the electorate, it's not like they see something in front of them and they're like, yeah, we're voting for that. They would have to go through 780 pages, look through all that, do what I'm doing basically, go to the UKRI, go to the Charity Commission, go to Arts Council England and work out what they're voting for and paying for at the same time. Sorry, that was a bit heavy.
So, I mean, again, I use that word corruption, but it sort of is, isn't it, really? Because it's these politicians who are being financially incentivized to then carry out the wishes of the people funding them.
Well, one has to be careful using the word corruption. I actually come from a family of lawyers, so so I always avoid using that word.
Well, all of this is legal, right? They're not breaking the law, any of them.
It is, yeah, all of it is legal.
I'm not saying it's right.
I think it's more, yeah, I think it's wrong, yeah.
Yeah, so take corruption back, otherwise you'll get sued.
Yeah. Okay, I'll take corruption back.
Good.
All right.
He didn't mean corruption. He meant you're crooks.
I mean, you're morally corrupt.
No, but it is wrong, but they get away with it. It's because
and it's Tory and Labour, by the way. This should be every side.
Tory, Labour, Greens, Jeremy Corbyn as well.
What are Jeremy Corbyn's interests?
So he gets about 15,000 from, he actually has quite a few, but he gets about 15,000 from an organisation called We Deserve Better. And I think Jeremy Corbyn, we deserve better than me finding it really hard to get all the details of We Deserve Better when I Googled it. And also Carla Denyer, do you know the Green MP? So she also gets funded by them about the same amount. And yeah, so I did Google We Deserve Better. The main thing that even saying Google, you know, I feel a bit, because Google has funding in our democracy, so I don't want to give it a plug even. But the main,
I think Google's pretty big as it is.
Yeah.
wow. Yeah, okay. It funds Sadiq Khan, there's, you know, there's elements of that. So I typed in We Deserve Better. Long story short, it was the address that took me to some interesting things on Companies House. I essentially found what looks like left-wing Tufton Street. It's that the address linked to the company that funds Carla Denyer and Jeremy Corbyn is also associated with like the 4-day week, loads of other woke projects going on at that address. And you just end up going down more rabbit holes because they'll have had events at that address that are really woke. So I'm still trying to work out what We Deserve Better is, but that's the issue, because when you don't know, when people say, what is We Deserve Better, then you wonder when Carla Denyer and Corbyn are saying, we need this, you think you or someone in the background that wants you to push this message. And they're going to want something in return, you know. And a lot of these groups have crossover. They will have people that have spoken for one group, and then you can find them in another campaign group. A lot of links to green industry.
It's the worrying thing is that what you're doing is highlighting a very real, very important issue, joking aside. And the worry is, for me, it's waste of public funds, but even more worrying than that, I don't think this is going to be sorted. And it's just going to be a continual drain on our finances. And if anything, under Labour, which prefers big state, it's going to get worse, surely.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting. I really don't know what to expect, actually. Normally I'm quite confident in my predictions, but I think it's going to be the most bureaucratic revolution of all time, because what I'm trying to do with Woke Waste is audit as much as possible, which is not possible for one person. There's so much. I do get a lot of offers of help, but we can only fight the system, you know, once we've got our spreadsheet. But we have to get it all out, because people haven't known what's going on. And they talk about the blob. That's the word that they give this beast. And I'm trying to de-blobify the blob.
Well, it's the cathedral theory, actually. If you guys ever looked into something that Ralph introduced, and I think he was looking at someone else. I got to talk about the cathedral theory at some point on here. I think it's been a while, and I don't think Ralph's videos are up anymore, so I have to go back and try to rediscover all of that. But it's essentially the overarching system that is essentially controlling everything else with underneath it. The overarching system is what they call the cathedral. And this lady is now beginning to discover these things. I just want to do a little quick intermission regarding all of the black pilling, I guess, about money.
The best things in life are free, but you can keep them for the birds and bees. Not give me money. That's what I want. 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 That's.
All right, I'll finish that music off with an outro, but for now, let's get back to the show.
And bring it to the surface, because then you can set about saying, we don't want this. But I do think, this is why I joke about the peasants' revolt, because I think there's a point where it tips over and people say, no, you're not, we cannot, I don't know how you actually do this with HMRC, but they're going to say, no more, you cannot have any more of our money. And this also, the democracy that we're seeing is also farcical. You know, we have rights in a democracy. What your warped version, I don't think people are going to be that much happy with for that much longer. And without Keir Starmer putting me in jail, he's not going to have that much space eventually if people really do get fed up. But the thing is, the reason why I say it's going to be a bureaucratic revolution is there's no use. I think I saw Thomas from The Apprentice, Thomas Skinner, saying like, all right, I'm going to go out to the street and there's no use doing that. You have to unpick it. You have to go to the underworld and get it all up and look at it and then say what systems we need. You need a Javier.
Actually, that's exactly what I was discussing with the Big Nose of London the other day on his show, where they were discussing, like, what's the point of, for example, Tommy Robinson is having another group therapy session, another rally on the 26th of this month in Whitehall. But he was like, well, what's the point of this? I mean, do they have a list of demands? Are they going to give 10 Downing Street a list of demands or things that they want done? No, they never do. This is just really at this point a cathartic session of therapy where people are fed up. They don't know what to do, so they'll just come to London and wave some England flags. That is the problem. These rallies don't go anywhere. I mean, yeah, they'll help Tommy Robinson sell more books because that's going to be it's an infomercial for his book, I would imagine, 26. But also it's kind of cathartic for the people who go, but ultimately, no, it's just a valve release moment. It doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't do anything, it has never really changed the Overton window or pushed for anything, really. And yeah, ladies like this, Charlotte Gill, are the ones who have to be the ones behind the data in order to expose the corruption within the system. But the system itself, if you look into the cathedral theory, you'll find that the system overarchingly is so resistant and robust to revolutionary people that it will crush you deeply. I mean, this lady hasn't really damaged the system, she's exposing certain things, sure, but she hasn't really gone out and started to damage the system. Otherwise, the system will come for her. The system will come for her, and they will financially, through financial means as well as her reputation, they will destroy her. They'll destroy her finances. They'll destroy her reputation. They'll stick all sorts of allegations upon her of misconducts or whatever. If you were a man, there would be some form of raping of a woman or molestation of a child. But in her case, God knows what they'll figure out. But generally, yeah, they'll destroy you. And they'll destroy you in such an extent in which your family, extended family members would also be destroyed. Your grandparents, your mom, your dad, your brothers, sisters, your ex-boyfriends, in her case, would probably be feeling the wrath of this as well. So it's not like they'll just come for you. The cathedral, if you actually damage the cathedral, they will come for your entire family. This is Pyongyang style. This is Kim Jong-il, Kim Jong-un style. They come for you and your family, not just you. So you don't just get away with just you, or you don't have. You can be a martyr yourself, but know that your family will go with you. They'll be martyred along with you. So you're not just taking out yourself. And people like Tommy Robinson have already, they're the tip of the spear. They've already felt all this, and I don't know whether they've managed to keep their parents and family, extended families, out of it, but I know that his immediate family, his wife and kids and all that, they're getting the rough end of that stick anyway. And as I said, you watch what happens. People like Alex Jones, Tommy Robinson, and Nigel Farage, even to some extent, these are the tip of the spear. Now Nigel Farage tries to play the middle ground if he can, even though they still hate his guts, because I think he has vested interests elsewhere, financial and otherwise, to do that. But nevertheless, yeah, they will come for you if you really damage the system, the cathedral. If you come for the cathedral will destroy you. And that's why nothing will change. That's why nothing can change, because it's going to take a lot of people, who have nothing to lose, literally nothing more. The cathedral cannot take any more from them for them to step up, and that's the precipice in which things will fall, really go I mean, I hope it never goes violence, but it just goes bad all over, because there'll be just a vast majority of people who have nothing more to lose. This the let them eat cake situation. When people can't afford the price of bread, that's when they'll get serious about it. Otherwise, no, nothing serious happens unless you literally can't even eat anymore. And as long as they keep you somewhat healthy, somewhat educated, and somewhat comfortable, people won't really want to change that. They would rather, all they'll do is they'll point to the poor, the very poor, the ones who are not just in Britain but in Africa and other places. You think Red Nose Day is or children in need? I started to have a very different view of those shows and those events. They're not events to raise money for the poor. They are spectacles to show the middle class, this is where you could end up if you don't do as we tell you. I honestly think Red Nose Day and all these charity events that are held once a year and they used to be massive on TV. I don't know. I don't watch TV anymore, so I don't know where they are still massive. But these events are showcases of what could happen to you if you don't pay your taxes and be a good little citizen. So shut up, pay your taxes, be a good citizen, and in fact, give us a little bit extra to these charity events too, because we're pretending that we're doing good for someone else. But really, we're just showing you how life really is in other really horrible places to keep you in line. This is exactly what George Carlin said back in the day. He said, the rich never pay tax, don't pay any taxes, not really relevant to what they make. The middle class pay all the taxes, do all the work. The poor are there to scare the crap out of the middle class so that you keep going to those jobs, you keep paying those taxes, because the poor are there to scare the crap out of you, to show you where you could end up. So yeah, just keep working, you busy bees. Okay, this is almost to an end now, so let's hope this is the last little minutes of two. Sorry guys, this stream has gone a lot longer than I intended.
Millet, from Argentina, Fuera type movement to get it all out. But yeah, just going around the street going, it's not going to work. And I actually think that's one of the worst things about it, because it feels like we've been screwed over by, it's like lawyers from Islington that went to university. It just feels like they're not even the intelligentsia, but a sort of horrible educated elite conspired to create all this horrible legislation and quangos that would be very difficult for a lot of people to try and unpick.
Well, Charlotte, thanks for coming and talking to us about it.
Okay, that's it, boys and girls. That was it. Actually, that was good. It ended. These guys are gonna go on. Actually, there is one last segment. Let's play that one. There is one last question they always ask.
Keep up the research. Before we move over where our audience get to ask you their questions, what's the one thing we're not talking about that we should be?
I think, oh God, there's so many different things, but I'll go with one a bit rogue. Genetic sexual attraction. So we know that it's, very tangential. So we know that a lot more people are using technology to have children, say sperm donation and egg donation and things like that. But not many people know that there's a really big risk of incest from it in the past, in terms of when adults meet, close relatives meet in adulthood, there's something that can happen called genetic sexual attraction. And it's when they're just powerfully attracted to each other, because you're meant to desensitize as a child to close relatives as romantic prospects. And because we've had such an explosion, I mean, there's a Netflix documentary at the moment about a Dutch guy that fathered hundreds, maybe thousands of kids. He just enjoyed it. There are people doing it on Facebook. There are these clinics. I think we're going to have a real issue with it in the future. And I think that's something people are being really naive about. But maybe not if they watch Triggernometry.
That's right.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Damn, that was off the wall. I didn't even expect that one. Genetic sexual attraction. That means that if people are donating, if I'm donating to a sperm bank, once a week, whatever, as a part-time career, as a little side hustle, then I would potentially father thousands and thousands of kids, and those children in the future could end up incestually having brother, half sister potential relationships, even not knowing that their genetic father was me, or well, I mean, yeah, potentially even women who have donated lots of eggs, their genetic mother could have been they could be related through genetic mother side as well. So yeah, that is interesting. Curious. That's going to be an interesting future problem, I think. I don't think it's an issue now, but anyway, boys and girls, thank you so much for joining me on the Hafez Reflects. I know this one's a long one. I try to keep these to like half an hour or 30 minutes, but I really thought this was an interesting conversation. It was extremely interesting topic, something that we should all be aware of. I know I've managed to extend it by an extra hour. The original is only an hour or 53 minutes, and I managed to make it a 1 hour 45-minute event. But I hope you enjoyed some of my inputs onto it, and yeah, have yourselves a wonderful Wednesday evening. I'm going to try and do another one of these either Thursday or Friday, depending on how I feel. In the meanwhile, keep an eye out to Banksy, because sometimes we jump on there and we do some naughty things over there. And also check me out on the weekends. I tend to try to be out every weekend to do some sort of street event, cover some whatever protest or whatever is going on. Of course, I'm going to be at the Tommy Robinson event on the 26th, which is the week from a week after this weekend. So a week from now, give or take. And so, yeah, keep an eye out for those. Like and subscribe. Please hit the like button. It really helps. And share. If I have not been too offensive, then share it with close families. If I've been too offensive, then share it with wider family members. Maybe with some of those you don't like. In the meanwhile, based on the lot of the conversations that went on here, and especially the last portion of this interview, I think this music is kind of fitting. Oh, hold on.
The best things in life are free, but you can't keep them for the birds and bees. Not giving money. That's what I want. 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 Your loving give me a thrill, but your loving don't pay my bills. Not giving money. Yeah, that's what I want. 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 Oh yeah, that's what I want. Money don't get everything, it's true. What it don't get, I can't use. Not giving money. That's what I want. 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 Oh yeah, that's what I want. Whoa! Money don't get everything, it's true. What it don't get, I can't use. Not giving money. That's what I want. 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 Oh yeah, that's what I want. That's what I want. Oh, not giving money. That's what I want. A whole lot of money. That's what I want. Oh yeah, I want.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and peace.